LeBron James makes an appearance on the Pat McAfee Show and completely rips Stephen A. Smith to shreds. He also publicly defends Joel Embiid and gives us some more insight into the media scene and why he necessarily does not like it. So let's just say LeBron James did not hold back at all. You don't want to miss what he had to say, and we'll get into it all. But welcome in to Philly Take with RB, and we'll start it off by taking ourselves back to November, where Joel Embiid was involved in an altercation with Philly reporter Marcus Hayes. He writes articles for the Philadelphia Inquirer newspaper, and let's just say he overstepped the boundary. He went way over the line because he referenced Joel Embiid's late brother and son in an article that was simply talking about Embiid's work ethic, and now he needs to show up on the floor, and now he needs to get back, right? They had that whole ramp up, and we know that it's been a disastrous, torturous season for the Sixers, and honestly, this is just one of many moments at this point, but it really was a major turning point in the season. Matter of fact, here is the article that Hayes wrote. He said Embiid consistently points to the birth of his son, Arthur, as the major inflection point in his career. He often says he wants to be great, to leave a legacy for the boy named after his little brother, who tragically died in an automobile accident when Embiid was in his first year as a Sixer. Well, in order to be great at your job, you first have to show up for work. So again, he was talking about Embiid's work ethic, and there was absolutely no reason to bring that up. And honestly, it's why a lot of players get turned off from the media, right? And it just shows and reiterates that mentality where a lot of these reporters just want to get as many people to click as possible, and they're willing to overstep boundaries to do so. Joel Embiid then had responded a couple days later saying, "The next time you bring up my dead brother and my son again, you're going to see what I'm going to do with you, and I'm going to have to live with the consequences," right? And then he got in the altercation, he shoved Marcus Hayes. Okay. Well, anyway, LeBron James was on the Pat McAfee Show today, and he defended Joel Embiid in regards to the situation with a whole lot more, but let's hear what he had to say about the Joel Embiid situation.
Going on and other guys, like I seen something with Embiid where a reporter came into the locker room and started speaking about, like, I think his brother or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like how weird is that? Like, that's so weird. Like, why are we taking it to that point?
And I agree 100% here with LeBron James. Now, again, there is two sides to this, and LeBron James has done a lot before in the public eye to make it known, right, that he has certain viewpoints on things. He doesn't like the media, and obviously, as of late, that has been blown so far out of proportion with everything going on. But I agree with him here, right? Like, you as a reporter, and even me, right? Like, I've never been an inside reporter or anything like that, but I do try to respect the guys that I talk about. Now, there have been a few instances where I have gone over the line and maybe talked about a certain player's character or themselves, and that's because I really felt that way, and I don't like to do that, but there have been a couple players that I think deserved it based on what they said, based on how they treated other people, their actions, etc. But overall, I try to stay, with a line in the sand, and I try not to cross that line because at the end of the day, these guys are human beings. They also are people just like everyone else, and they have feelings, and I would never, ever do what Marcus Hayes did and bring up something so irrelevant to that conversation. I mean, it's just, it looks very scummy, if I'm being honest, and I think LeBron is right here. But at the same time, I do acknowledge that these reporters have to do a job. Now, let's fast forward it over to today, for example, right? LeBron James is always in the conversation. First Take, which I've said now for a while, I mean, they talk about the same three things, the Cowboys, the Lakers, LeBron, and, all this like clickbait topic type of stuff. They never mention the ins and outs of the sports world. They never talk about some of the smaller stories, but that's because those things don't sell as well as LeBron James. So let's be honest, right? Stephen A., he probably helps put these topics together every day. They talk about LeBron James, and I'm sure he does get sick and tired of hearing it every single day. And a couple weeks ago, there was a topic that had come up on multiple platforms, and it resulted in this moment right here. He confronted Stephen A. Smith, and that just led to a whole explosion of other events and podcast appearances and things being said. And let's just say that Stephen A. was, making notice of what LeBron said. And let's talk about what Stephen A. said, right? Because I honestly did not know exactly what he had said, and we'll get to what LeBron had to respond with today. But pretty much, if we go over here and we look at the transcript from Stephen A.'s podcast, essentially he was talking about Bronny James, and he was saying that he doesn't think Bronny is going to be a good NBA player. He doesn't think he's going to be ready for a while, and he should be in the G League. But at the same time, because he's LeBron's son, Bronny, is up in the NBA, and if he was down in the G League, they would talk about him differently, and they would criticize him more and ask why can't he follow in his father's footsteps. Look, I completely agree that Bronny is in a very tough situation, and it's not fair to him. I think Bronny should be evaluated as the player Bronny James. Now, I do think Stephen A has some valid points here in that Bronny was a second-round pick. Rich Paul forced every other team to look away, not even think about looking in his direction so he could push him to the Lakers to get this storyline, to create more buzz. On the other side, I think Stephen A is part of the contributor to this problem because, again, all they talk about on these big main stage shows are LeBron, his son, this and that. Was it a cool moment? Absolutely, which Stephen A admits. But at the same time, and obviously, in the last couple of days, Bronny's been playing better. But Stephen A says, this guy just isn't ready, right? He doesn't have the physical attributes and the gifts of LeBron James. And he's just really not an NBA player right now. I was at Summer League last year, and I was at the Bronny James game where he played the Celtics. And the way that these fans, every possession, were just like kind of waiting for something big to happen with Bronny, it kind of was just cringeworthy. And then he made his first shot at the end of the game, and the whole place went nuts like they had just won a playoff series. So I do agree that it's very weird and it's tough for him because he doesn't want to be in that situation. And if Stephen A is just simply criticizing, saying, look, Bronny's not an NBA player. He's not there yet. Maybe he can develop, keep your dreams going. He's just not there yet. And it's unfair to him, that he has to kind of be up on that main stage, has a bigger contract, but maybe can't fulfill it. Just because he's LeBron's son, I agree with that. And Stephen A has a job to do, and these reporters have a job to do. So I don't think LeBron should get mad about that. Now, there's probably a whole lot more beneath the surface that goes on behind the scenes, things that are said. I don't know what is said, right? And Stephen A, even a few days ago, said, I might have been wrong about Bronny James. And that's fine. These guys should admit when they're wrong because nobody is ever going to have perfect takes. So again, if he was just criticizing Bronny as the basketball player, I don't think there's any issue with that. But if he was talking about LeBron and his legacy, and if there's other things and how they're related and why he can't do anything because of LeBron and he doesn't like LeBron, so he doesn't like Bronny, you know what I mean? There's just too much involved in there. And I think as a reporter, just my personal opinion, you should be able to separate family, from the basketball player, from personal off the court stuff. Just analyze what you see on the floor. And if that is only what Stephen A is doing, I don't think there is anything wrong with that. But LeBron James commented on Stephen A. Smith today. Let's hear what he had to say.
Yep. Which leads obviously to you and Stephen A. Hey, legit, that feels like a moment that had been brewing for a long time.
He's like on a Taylor Swift tour run right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're watching it. Yep. We're also...
He's on a Taylor Swift tour run right now, which is crazy to say. By the way, he's on the same network, right? Pat McAfee's on ESPN. Stephen A works at ESPN. This might create some more conflict, man, but drama sells, Oh,
yeah. You're seeing it as well.
He literally, it started off with, I didn't want to address it.
Yeah, sure.
I didn't want to address it. I wasn't going to address it. But since the video came out, I feel the need to address it.
Yeah, went viral.
I don't see anything wrong with that from Stephen A. The whole moment came out. It was publicized, I think, by NBA Central or whoever it was. Stephen A had to talk about it. Maybe if it never showed up and nobody took a picture of it, maybe it wouldn't have happened. But it did. And there's a lot that happens behind the scenes, and he had to address it. So I agree with Stephen A there.
You would be not to talk about it.
Are you kidding me? If there's one person that couldn't wait to the video to drop so you could address it, it's your ass. Like seriously, it's. And like he completely missed the whole point. The whole point. Never.
And I think that's the real issue right there. LeBron doesn't think that Stephen A understood him, right? When he apparently said, keep my son's name out of your mouth. Stephen A has a job to do. He can analyze, he can criticize. But again, if it goes deeper into personal relations, that's probably where LeBron's mad. Again, they talk about him every day. So I do think that Stephen A is a part contributor of the issue. But overall, he does have a job to do. And these players, sometimes the way they do treat the media is not fair. So I think it's kind of on both sides there.
Never would I ever not allow people to talk about the sport, criticize players about what they do on the court. That is your job to criticize or to, be in a position where, okay, if a guy's not performing, that is all part of the game. That's all part of the game.
And I think that in part, that's really only what he was trying to do, right? I mean, let's be honest. Like, Bronny's really not ready to be like a high-level NBA player yet. Doesn't mean he can't get there, but the pressure, the expectations are there because of LeBron James, and it sucks that it has to be that way, but it does. The other thing that LeBron said was about Brian Windhorst. I don't know why Brian started catching strays, but he said, this guy who says he's my effing best friend, these guys are just weird. So again, I feel like there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes, you know, how they communicate, certain rumors that may have come out before, and LeBron just simply doesn't like it. LeBron also fired back at the people who thought he signed with Nike because of MJ. No, the F I didn't. I signed with Nike because I got a heck of a signing bonus and moved my mom out of the hood the day after I signed that contract. Hey, I'm right there with LeBron on that. I agree, right? You got an opportunity. You did it. You don't have to worry about what people say, right? When you achieve things, when you get to that level and you start doing stuff, people are going to talk. You can't please everybody. He did what he had to do. He achieved his dream and he helped his family out. And really, that's all that matters. But just wanted to overall talk about this situation because I think it was very prevalent in the whole media scene nowadays. I don't like how a lot of the things are trending, but me as a content creator who's trying to at least help, you know, transition the landscape and revolutionize it just a little bit. I think that people will continue to seek out different media sources because of things like that. And you can see if LeBron's pissed off with the type of coverage that there is, I'm sure a lot of other players are as well. So those are my thoughts. Give me your reactions down below. How do you feel about this? Appreciate everybody for tapping in. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.